Good morning, folks. How are you guys doing today?
Fine.
All right, I'll take fine.
Hi, Michael. Good morning.
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
Pretty good, brother.
All
Hey, everybody.
right. Good to see some other faces today. Let's see, anyone else in the waiting room? Right. How's Thursday morning going so far? Anything exciting in the first little bit of the day here?
It was nice out really early this morning, I'll tell you that. I'm not going to say it's cooling off yet because, you know, then I'll jinx it. But it was nice. Yeah, about 6:30, real nice this morning.
Yeah, there was actually a cool breeze.
I know, we forgot what they are. Cool breeze, right? What's that?
Totally. You know, it's funny. I think it's in, I want to say it's Finnish or something like that. They have a word. It's like Google or something like that. I can't do it, but it's a word that literally means like window weather, meaning that like you look outside and it looks lovely, but it's actually not. And like I feel like we have that all the time here. Like you know, early morning, like you know, if I'm going out to do something, and I'm like, oh, it's all peaceful and calm and cool, and you go out and it's still like 96 degrees. Like, what's this?
I know.
Yeah,
you know, I went to university up in Buffalo, and I was only there during like the fall and the winter and the spring, never a summer, of course. And around October, November, you look out in the morning and be like, oh, it's sunny, it's nice out. And you go outside, it'd be like 12 below. The snow would come from the sides. It would just sneak attack you every day. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, totally. See, and so I feel like we finally are kind of getting past some of that when you look out and it's like, oh, it is actually kind of cool, you know?
All
right, well, I think we will go ahead and kick off here. People were coming in fast and furious, but I think we've got our group. So it's kind of fun having a small group because, you know, I can let you guys direct things a little bit. So if you've got questions or thoughts or anything like that, please absolutely just jump right on in. I've got my outline here, so I'll kind of touch on some of the key points, make sure you guys get some good information overall. But again, if you want to direct it down something, if you see like a particular feature that seems super interesting to you, like, you know, really relevant to what you're trying to do, whatever, again, feel free, just jump in, we'll chat about it. And, we'll see where our discussion takes us. So I think first thing here, we do have a couple of somewhat newer to Remax folks with us. So I guess I'll just ask first, like who has already been using VoicePad a fair bit or feels reasonably comfortable with it? Okay. And Mary, tell us a little bit about that. How do you use yours primarily? Just for like the sign call portion, or do you do stuff with buyers, or?
just the sign call. I put it on the sign and set it all up. You can go into a lot of detail in setting it up. So.
And the good thing about that is you don't have to, though, right? It's very much a Ron Popeil kind of thing. You can set it and forget it if you want to. Yeah, it's very flexible that way. So okay, so you're in here. Are you looking just then for to see if there's any tricks you're missing, or what are you looking to get at it today?
Yeah, just refresher.
All right.
Been a while.
And I think we've got a few people here who have never probably even logged in yet. So I'll definitely, start from the beginning and do a good overview here. And like I said, we'll get into some deeper pieces. But I guess a good place to start is, what is VoicePad, right? So if you've not used it or haven't done a lot with it yet, it's a call capture and lead generation system. There's a lot of different ways you can use it. You can use it from both the buyer side and the listing side. The initial thrust of the system, like when it came out, was really basically just to capture sign calls, right? That's kind of how it started, and a lot more has been built into it since then. We've had it for a good long time now, and only honestly with the pandemic here have we finally seen kind of a more of a drop off with usage of the system from the client side. Right up until that, sign calls, are still big. Signs are still the #1 most converted lead source, right? Doesn't mean that that's the highest number of leads necessarily, but it is the highest conversion on that, because people are out there, presumably they're serious, they're driving around neighborhoods looking at, they're physically in person with the home, which makes a different impression than seeing something online. We all have great photographers and whatnot these days, so we can get that really nice curb appeal photo, but sometimes you get a very different vibe if you're sitting outside the house physically, right? So you'll see a different number of inquiries coming through from a really nice picture versus reality sometimes. With VoicePad, you can pop a rider up on the home. It just says for 24/7 info, call now, and it's got the number on there. We still see, looking at metrics, that if you've got something that looks like it's an automated system, that generates 3 to 4 times the number of calls that just a regular phone number on the sign does. Because people oftentimes don't want to talk to a person, right? They're like, hey, I want to know this one thing about the house. I don't want you to try to sell me on it, right? We still have a lot of conversion coming through from that, the writer that indicates that it's an automated system, and that still holds true. Another great thing about VoicePad is, as I mentioned before, you can, and as Mary was saying, you can go in and you can do a lot of customization with your listing information, or you don't have to do anything. In the MLS, it's in VoicePad. That's another thing that really sets the system apart. It's what sold us on it originally, and it's the biggest reason we still have it. And that is the live MLS integration. So this is not like one of those systems where you've got 15 different writers and all have different codes on them, and you got to find the code that's not being used and put that on the house. Then you go and record that code, and then an hour later, you finally, after redoing it 26 times, have your 1 minute recording for the home. This is not that. This actually automatically generates the information from what you put in the MLS. Then if you want to go in there and tweak it, you can. They actually have a professional voice actress who goes and records all the different pieces of that, kind of strings it together, sort of like Siri-esque sort of thing, and builds out your presentation that way. So it's very easy to use. If you want to go in and add additional features to it, you can. If you forget about it, whatever, even if you've never logged in before, all of your stuff is in VoicePad for your listings, and it's available. The other great thing about the MLS integration is the fact that it means that VoicePad can be used for anything in the MLS. It's not just your listings. It's not just our company listings. If it's in the MLS, it can also be found by that system. So there's a ton of other apps out there these days for folks to be, finding property information, but VoicePad's still a great one. And they've got a good mobile site still as well. But if they were to, for instance, just read out on the phone, or click anything else in the app after they get the information link back, they can see everything in the MLS. But of course, the good part there is, if they've connected initially through your listing, anything else they look at, you now have that as a lead source. So disarms the other signs out there, keeps track of them. So that's kind of like the sign side of it. The buyer side of it, again, using that app, you can register your own buyers in there. Again, you don't have to, but you get additional information, and you can kind of track what they're looking at, what they're doing, if you actually do claim them as yours, essentially. It's something that you can get out there for your clients to use. Obviously, you can use the mobile Remax app. It's a great app as well. There's a few different ones out there that you can use. I'll show you some interesting ways to leverage this in just a little bit here, but very much like the Remax mobile app itself, you can give this to folks. And what I think is great is it has the same functionality as an app that you download from the App Store, but you don't have to have them go through that. For believe it or not, some folks still have a little bit of a challenge. They go to the App Store and they search for the thing and they have to allow it, and then they get 3 security prompts, that kind of stuff. It's still a little bit of a barrier there. Since VoicePad is all inside, the browser, it's a mobile app that way, there's nothing to install. So you can like text them, a link, say, hey, take a look at this on my site, right? They tap on it, it goes straight there. It's still integrated with their GPS on the phone and all that stuff, but it just brings them directly into it. And so you kind of like, hook them immediately because they're already there, they're already looking at it, and they just kind of continue. So that's sort of a plus as well. The other thing I think is great on the seller and listing side is you're never going to miss a sign call, right? It's going to come in directly there. That can be a good thing for your sellers, letting them know that. And also you can of course look at statistics and things like that. So you can see, what the level of interest has been when they've come in, and you can also get some additional information that can help illuminate other things. So you'll be able to say, for instance, how long someone was, on a phone call listening to property about it, or information about the property. Or you can see, where they clicked around to on the mobile site, things like that. So it gives you a little bit deeper insight there, and you can even, pull statistical reports for your sellers, things like that. So a lot of flexibility there, a lot of different ways to do it. The other thing too is it's bilingual, so it automatically generates all of the property information in English and Spanish. So, again, a fair number of Spanish speakers out there, if they prefer that, they can fire that up and you don't have to do anything magical to make that happen. It just happens. As I also mentioned, any inquiries, any additional information generated from that goes straight through to you. So if they are using, the phone one, and just, getting the basic information there, it'll say, for additional information, press 1. Okay, they press 1, guess where it goes? It, passes directly through whatever number you put in there. So, it would ring right through on your cell phone. If they say, hey, I want more information, I want to schedule a showing, they tap on the mobile site again, that just goes directly to you as well. So a lot of flexibility there, a lot of different ways that it can be used. Like I mentioned, less use than it used to get. And, we've been seeing that slowly drop off as other mobile apps and, smartphones and all those kind of things have actually become very prevalent, as we all know now. But as I mentioned, there's still a lot of stuff that happens, just from those signs. So it's a good thing to have in your arsenal. Plus, of course, the price is right. It's something we just provide to you guys because you're here. The only thing that there's as far as the cost is if you want to pick up some of those riders to pop up on your listings, you can grab those at any of our front desks. They're $5. The other thing I want to make sure I'm clear about is, as I mentioned, there aren't individual codes and whatnot that you have to have. So you have to have them match the property, that kind of thing. So people always ask, well, okay, well, how does it know? How does it find what house they're actually like calling on if all the riders have the same number, that kind of thing. Well, they all have the 602-277-3111 phone number on there. That's our home hotline. Mary, yes, thank you. There's a great example of the rider. And as I mentioned, it's connected live to the MLS. So what it asks them to do is put in the house number. So if they're outside 1234 Main Street, they just put in 1234. It actually does a live search in the MLS. Obviously, it's going to roll our brokerages listings to the top if there's, a bunch of them with the same house number kind of thing. Let's say there's a couple matches. We'll say, there are 2 matches for that house number for 123 Elm Street, press 1, for 123 Main Street, press 2. That gets them the information there. So again, you don't have to worry about it being connected to a specific code or anything like that. Any quick questions about that? A very wordy overview of the general piece. All right. So I will also send out a cheat sheet that has, all the primary information on this, kind of how to navigate around the system a little bit, additional information about, some of the different sections of the site, things like that. So don't worry about taking furious notes. Plus, of course, I'm available to answer questions for you. But a few things that we're mentioning here, the web address, all that kind of stuff, that'll be there for you. Also, if you don't know what your login is, you can just, reply to that message with the cheat sheet, and I'll go look it up and I'll send it right back to you. So how do you log in? Well, you go to admin.voicepad.com, and that will take you right to the login page. Let me share that for you guys. Also, is my audio holding up okay? Every single person in this house right now is on Zoom. Okay, good. Let me find the right window. Okay. So you go to admin.voicepad.com. That'll take you to the login for your dashboard. Make sure I share that with sound because I want to demonstrate that. Computer sound. There we go. All right, that's what I'm looking for. So another thing I'll mention here is I was having kind of a hard time last night finding a profile to use that had a lot of live information, since listings are turning so quickly right now. So most of the ones I could find, only had a couple of days info in there before they would come off market. So I'll show you some examples here, but the data is not going to be quite as deep as it typically would be. I will go ahead and borrow Danielle Martinez. So thanks to Danielle for letting us borrow her profile here. All right. So when you first log into VoicePad, when you very first log in, if you've not been in before, it's going to pop up a window that asks you to go through and plug in your contact info, make sure your phone number is correct, those kind of things in the profile. So since we do have some folks that haven't been in here before, we'll jump over to that and I'll just kind of walk through that real quick. You can also get to it by clicking that My Profile button there. If there is not a photo in here that's already pulled from one of the various data sources, obviously you can just click on Upload and plug that in there. That's going to be shown on your mobile site and a few other places when they get information back from the system. So make sure you throw something good in there. Of course, you'll verify your phone number. I would recommend putting in your mobile number versus an office number or something like that, because it'll go direct to you. Tell it what kind of number it is so it knows how it can reach you. For getting text notifications, just make sure you've picked the correct carrier there. It puts the rest of it together. I will note that for some of them, there are multiple versions. So, like AT&T primary and secondary. So you can select one of those. You can hit test right here. Give it a minute, see if it comes through. If you don't get it, just try the other carrier. So if your carrier has multiple entries in there, just try a couple of them until you get the right one. As I mentioned, the phone number is pretty straightforward. If they ask to be, if for more info or to be connected through for any of the different calls to action there, that's where it's going to put it through. I mean, pretty straightforward. As far as text goes, you can change these options on or off, but what I think is great about it too is, again, this is all real-time stuff. So if someone did roll up curbside and calls the number and is getting more information on that, you're going to get a text usually within about 10 seconds or so that says someone is sitting outside, 123 Main Street. So you can kind of have that in your head. If you do then get a call that comes through, a minute later, you can be prepped that someone's calling about that property. Likewise, if people are using the mobile sites, you'll get some notifications there. It's not going to blow you up and send something for every single one. But another thing I really like about the system too is that it pays attention to context. So if someone had been looking at some properties and they stop for a week or two and then they become active again, the system's going to notice that and let you know. It's going to say, Bob Smith, this lead that's in your system, has re-engaged, right? They're back out looking at stuff again. So if you see that sort of thing, it makes it a little bit more obvious that, hey, this is someone that's probably actively looking. It wasn't just like a neighbor, right? That went to see what the price was and then moved on. So good to see some of those kind of things. Also, when you initially log into the system, as I mentioned, it's going to ask you to go through this initial setup. That's going to include recording your name and affiliation. So like Mike DeRosa, Remax Professionals. It's going to play that where necessary, on the audio portions. If you ever want to re-record that, you can just hit the record button here. The other thing is for anything you need to record. So for instance, if you do decide you want to add supplemental information to the listing information for a property, and I'll show you that, of course, the system will always give you either a phone number you can call into to do the recording, or it'll call you. So again, it knows the number that you plugged in here. You can say, call me, and your phone will ring. It'll prompt you, you record it, you hang up, you're done. So again, even that part is made really easy. Email address, again, pretty straightforward. That's just for any notifications and whatnot that go through. And then a couple other options here. If you want to change your password, that's under the change login option here. Text keywords, those are handy as well. These will be set up by default, but you can add or edit them. So as long as it's available in the system, you can do that. Obviously, if you put in, like Bob or something like that, it may be taken because they do need to be unique. But this is handy because the system works 3 ways, right? There's phone, so if someone still actually dials in, they can get their information. If they want to use the mobile site, they can do that. And again, information is going to be pushed to them via text. And if they tap on any of that to see property photos or anything like that, it takes it directly to your agent's site. They can also text for information. So that kind of hits that middle ground. If you looked at that writer that Mary held up, it says call or text. So they can text the phone number, and same deal, just put in the street address, it'll do the search there, it'll send them the information along with a link to all the additional property information, photos, all those kind of things, which again ties them right into your site. So if you want to put your own text keyword on signs, you can do that, or you can use this in advertising, things you put out there. One thing that Nate does, for instance, with his listings is on his flyers that he puts out, because he still does, actual farming and sends out physical pieces when he has a new listing, that kind of thing. He will actually put their phone number on there, and he'll actually set a property code just so it's very direct for the person. I'll show you where you can do that if you want to use it for something like this. But he actually doesn't put the price on any of those things. He says, something along the lines of, since market conditions are hot right now, call for current price. And he mentions, again, it's an automated system, so people aren't scared. They're not going to have to talk to a person, that kind of thing. But he'll put that on there. They also have things that just have, Nate as the text keyword for additional information. It's just a way for them to collect that stuff in a way that they can follow up on, because if someone just goes and pops into Zillow or Google's a street address or whatever, that never necessarily comes back to you. If you provide an easy way to find that one piece of information they're looking for, but it's trackable, then you can do follow-ups. So, they still get a lot of people that are, calling the automated systems. Again, they're not scared to do that, right? Just getting the pricing information, but then they've got the log of that. So he'll have his buyer agents go back through and do follow-ups with all those people, right? Not even necessarily on that property, but you guys know how this is, right? If that wasn't exactly what they're looking for, hey, they're buyers, you're going to try to take advantage of that. So again, just another way that can be done in there as well. And then mobile site. So if you click through here, and again, it'll prompt you for this if it's for your first time you're logging in. If you plug in your, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, things like that, it's going to add those as social options on the site. So just another way to connect with you and pull in those feeds. You'll see a direct link to your mobile site. So if you want to preview it, copy, paste it, share it, anything like that, you can do that as well. If you actually use QR codes for anything, it's got that generated here as well. So again, just pretty straightforward stuff. Biggest thing is just being aware that this is where you can find the direct link to your site, the shortened link. There's various other ways you could share it as well. I'll show you that too. But if you need it, that's in here, or if you want to preview it, anything like that. If you take a look at phone options, again, this is all information in the cheat sheet, so I'm not going to spend more than a few seconds on these here. But voicemail on off. So if you have it on, the system will actually take any voicemails inside VoicePad itself and notify you when you have one so you can listen to it. If you have it off, it's just going to basically ring through whatever phone number you put in there. And obviously, if it goes to voicemail on your cell or whatever, that's where the voicemail goes. Pretty straightforward. Simul ring, this is great if you're working with a partner or something like that, or if you do have like, a home office and you've got a desk phone that's actually, like a landline and your cell. Things like that. You can have that basically ring through to multiple phone numbers at once, or certainly if you're on a team, right? You can have that set to ring, multiple team members, and whoever gets it, gets it. These again are pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to do much on those. One thing I do want to mention in particular is visual lead notification. So this can be on or off. If you have it turned on, the phone number that's going to show up if someone does call through is going to be the VoicePad phone number. It'll be that 602-277-3111. So the reason that's an option is that way you can set it up in your phone as a contact, so you'll know that that call coming through is from a sign call, right? This is a personal preference thing. If you have it off, it'll basically just pass through the phone number of the person that's actually calling. So I personally would prefer to have that off because, as I mentioned, you're going to get a text notification if someone's, listening to something in the system. So you'll know someone's calling. That can kind of put you in the right mindset that if I get a random number coming through, a minute later, it's probably a client, right? And you want to pick that up for sure. But again, just something to think about. You can do that however you'd like. And again, text and email options are very straightforward as well. Text, you can basically just say, how much do you want to be bothered on it? I'd probably have these turned on, because again, it's going to be the initial contact. It's not going to blow you up every time they touch something. Likewise on email, do you want to get an email as well as a text on an inquiry? Again, on or off. I say turn all notifications on, and see what you get. And if anything's bugging you, then go back in and turn them off if it's too much. So quick overview of some of those bits and pieces that are in there. Again, I think it's all pretty straightforward, but if you guys have any questions, you can certainly just let me know. All right, so now that I've covered those things that I needed to cover on that, let's actually take a look at the guts here. So when you initially log in, you're going to see any active or recently sold listings that you've got in the system. It will keep off-market things in here for a couple of weeks. The idea behind that is if you potentially still have a sign in the yard or some advertising material out there for the property, those kind of things, it wants to make sure that's still directly tied to you, and that people still get information when they call in, so that you can do the follow-up, right? You all know the scripts for these kind of things. Oh, you know what? That one just went under contract, but let me get you into a different house today, right? So you, of course, got those follow-up options. I'll take a look at lead managers, some things like that, but let's take a look at properties initially. Two things I'll mention here. One, as I mentioned, it's going to pull this live from the MLS. So when you put a listing in there, it's going to show up here pretty quick, and it's going to have a presentation created just based on the information you have put in the MLS. Oftentimes that's fine. If you want to go in there and edit it, add a little additional detail, that kind of stuff, you can do that as well, and it's very quick and easy to do that. However, if you also have something, let's say that's a coming soon, or something that isn't going to fit into the mold, right? So maybe it's a piece of land or something like that. You can actually click this new presentation button here and actually do that yourself. So as you can see under here, we've got residential, commercial, lots and land, farm, multifamily, things like that. So if you wanted to set something up, you absolutely could do that. In that case, you would have a code associated with it, right? Because it's not going to necessarily have a street address that they can see if it's a piece of land. Again, it's nice to have that flexibility to do that. I'm not going to go into any detail on it here, because basically all of the steps to create a presentation here are the same as editing the automatically created one. It's just that you're plugging the information in rather than pulling it from the MLS. Again, if that's something you think you might be using, I'm happy to go through that in detail with you one-on-one too. As I was noting for codes, so here's where you could add one. So let's say Danielle wanted to go ahead and do what Nate does. She wanted to send out some stuff to the neighborhood and have them call in and try to capture some of those things. So she wants to have a code so she can put that on there for that marketing purpose. You just click add code. It's going to just bring up some that are available. You can click one and say assign, and now that's the code attached to that property. And this will say 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever that is. Again, totally unnecessary. They won't have one by default because usually it's just doing that live search, but it's just that easy if you want to use that. Another thing I'll mention on that, I believe it's in Marketing Toolkit. I actually just pushed a couple of updates here, so a couple things moved around, but media tracking and print ad tools. Again, you don't have to remember this, it's in the cheat sheet, but if you do use a code, what I really like about it is these media sources here. So, you've got 0 through 9, so 10 different ones that you can have here. And again, not as much of this going on as before, but there's still a fair bit there. If you've got flyers that you've put out, for instance, like I just mentioned as an example, if you're still doing any actual print advertising somewhere, that kind of thing, or if you're doing A/B testing, right? So let's say you're sending out 2 different styles of flyers to your farm area, and you want to see what's actually getting the most attention, right? What you can do is you can edit any of these. Just basically plug in a name. So you could say, flyer A, and this one could be flyer B, whatever. This could be, Craigslist, whatever they may be, right? If you add these media digits, what you do is with that 4-digit code, so let's say the code is 1, 2, 3, 4, on there, you just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 0 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, whatever, right? And so if the client actually puts that in, then it's going to automatically track that to the appropriate lead source. So like I said, for that A/B testing flyer example, you could then pull a report and you can see like this many came in from media source that was flyer A and this many were flyer B, that kind of thing. You know, so again, just another flexible thing you can do with it there. All right. So on this listing, as I mentioned, it's automatically created, and you can just preview that here. I think my audio will come through, so I'm going to go ahead and just play this example.
This centrally located 5-bedroom, 3-bath home is located in a great neighborhood. This property is listed for $390,000. Interior features of this property include walk-in closets, recently upgraded or renovated flooring, a microwave oven, an in-sink disposal, a formal dining room, a formal living room, air conditioning, a home security system, a family room, a kitchen island, and his and her closets. The approximate square footage is 2,632 square feet.
So I would guess that she hasn't edited that, because typically you don't feature things like, you know, a microwave. You know, that's, or an in-sink disposal. It's a little weird that it pulled those things. Usually the system is pretty good about when you've selected features in the MLS, you know, it's going to ignore the more mundane things, like air conditioning, for instance. That's actually really odd that it notes it there. So maybe there's a new system or something like that. Just like with their clients on the East Coast, it often doesn't mention by default that, you know, home has a basement, because every home has a basement, right? Well, out here, that's something that we want to feature if it has that, right? Because it's unusual. So in our setup, it'll go ahead and basically that's one of the first things it's going to mention if it sees that. But likewise, you know, in some different areas, air conditioning might be like, oh, wow, that's a nice thing. Out here, yeah, well, obviously, right? But hey, that's a good example as to why you want to, you know, listen to those and make sure it's featuring the appropriate things. So we'll get into those details in a sec. In fact, right now. But if you want to just quickly edit a couple pieces, for instance, if you just had a price reduction, you could come in here, hit edit price. It'll take you right here. You can change that immediately if you'd like. It will always overwrite this from the MLS as it sweeps through the system. But, you know, if you don't want to wait to have that come through, you know, so the next person that, you know, calls in or pulls it up on the site immediately has, you know, that changed price, you can do that. Likewise, if you just want to edit some pieces of what it mentioned, you can save that here. Or if you just want to walk through all those screens, you can hit right here where it says click to edit presentation. Again, we'll jump in here. I'll talk about a couple of the key pieces, but you'll see that once you've done this once or twice as well, it's going to literally take you about 1 minute. So if we start just with general features, again, 3 beds, centrally located, etc. All this stuff is going to pull from the MLS. Anything that's grayed out is something that you can't change, right? So you can't edit the street address. That better be correct if it's in the MLS. I know it's weird. I'll answer it because people always ask it, but you know, okay, you can't change the bedrooms, but you can change the baths. Why is that? Basically, it's because some MLSs still like don't do well with fractional baths. So, you know, if it's like 3 1/4 or 3 1/2 or things like that, some MLSs don't really support that very well for whatever reason. So that's an option you can change. That's all there is to that. The other things, though, are descriptions, right? So it's centrally located, awesome, attractive, charming, cozy, you know, so it's a 900 square space. Maybe you want to call it cozy, you know. So these, again, are self-explanatory, but you can plug those in there. And then style, again, it's going to try to pull this, the default ones from MLS. But, you know, maybe it's an interesting Gregorian style house down in the, you know, historic district. You can pick those things, right? So if there is something that's more descriptive, you want to plug that in, you can do that, of course. And then area information. So, you know, if you want to mention that's in a seniors community, obviously that could be a good thing. If it's downtown, entertainment, schools, you know, again, pretty straightforward stuff in here. It's got generic stuff too, like a great neighborhood, a nice area, etc. You know, put in what you want to put in, of course. On the next screen here, as I mentioned, it's going to try to pull all these things by default from the MLS. Usually it's going to try to pick just a few of those more interesting items like I mentioned. But, you know, this is the one thing you want to glance at. Like I said, for this one, for whatever reason, I guess it doesn't have the other options selected since it left a bunch of these on, like, again, like the disposal and stuff like that. But, you know, again, self-explanatory. You can see what's in here. I typically say pick like maybe 3 or 4 things on each of the next couple of pages here, because you don't want it to be like totally drawn out. Obviously, when they're viewing on the mobile site, it doesn't matter as much because it's just going to kind of be more of a list view. It's not going to be, taking time for them to see that. So, balance those things. But again, it's pretty straightforward here. And additional interior features. So like I said, typically mention air conditioning unless you actually set it to do that. So again, maybe it's got a new system or something like that. But if you want to mention that it's multi-zone AC or something like that, you could do that. If it's particularly efficient, you could pick that. And then again, everything else self-explanatory. But you might want to mention that did it have a recent renovation? Okay, let's say it's got a new kitchen or a bathroom, throughout interior, exterior. Those are things you might want to mention there. Counters, if there's a particular type of counter, like if it's got quartz or something a little more interesting, maybe you want to mention that. You can do that. Again, pretty straightforward stuff here. Typically, unless it's something that is an eye-catching feature, these are off by default, but you have the option. Exterior features, same deal, right? So if you want to talk about the boat pit it's got, or if it's actually out on one of the lakes communities, maybe it's got a boat dock that you want to mention. It's on a golf course, right? Things like that you can put in here. Likewise, if it's in a more natural area, maybe you want to mention that's got one of those, invisible fences on it, things like that you can do. Maybe it's got, RV parking or something, so you want to mention that, or, a particularly large, detached garage. Again, straightforward stuff here, but, you can see you can easily add those things in there. And then community features. Again, straightforward, but if it's in, a gated area, you might want to mention that. If it is, let's say, something in Sun City and it's right by the hospital, and that could be a good feature for your target demo, select medical facilities in here, those kind of things. Likewise, if it's on the golf course or country club, always a good thing to mention there. And we get to our pricing page. So I'll mention a couple quick things on this. Like I said, you can edit this, but it's always going to be overwritten by the current price in the MLS, as it does those sweeps through a few times a day. So this is kind of temporary. If you're changing it here, just make sure you've changed it in the MLS, obviously. But right here, include price in the presentation, yes or no. You pretty much always want to say yes, especially in the current market. But back in the day when we had like REO and all kinds of things like that too, just think about ways you can strategically use that. If you're going to be doing something deeper with the system, just give that a little bit of thought. Obviously, the number one thing most people are inquiring about is the current price. So if you don't provide that to them, they might be a little frustrated, right? But as a good example, again, when they had like REO stuff turning like crazy in the last super challenging market, again, one thing that Frank's team would do is they'd have the prices turned off, right? And then they would add a little bit of information, which I'll show you right down here, that basically says, because this is a bank-owned property and prices can change frequently, press 1 now to hear the current price. And of course, what does press 1 now actually do? Connects them through to, his live BA sitting there at desk taking all those calls, right? So they, kind of increase the connection that way. So, again, a lot of different ways you can use it, something to think about there. So would you like to mention that this is a recent price reduction? By default, it'll do that if the price changes, but maybe they don't want to appear desperate or something like that. And again, in the current market, I don't think we're going to see a lot of those, but you can choose to turn that on or off. If you want to mention that there is an offer in on it, you can do that sort of thing. Do you want to mention that the owners are motivated sellers? Again, just things in here if you might find any of that to be useful. The additional information. So a couple of ways you can do that here. So if there's something that's not covered in the general presentation that is automatically created, you can add it here. Again, another good example of this back from the crazy days is when people were doing all sorts of things to incentivize sales. Like sometimes they'd, I kid you not, some of you remember this, right? They'd, like have a new car or even an old car, but they would like, include a vehicle with the purchase or something, right? Like, hey, the new Prius that's in the garage conveys with the house. Right? Stuff like that where the MLS is not set up to have something like that in there. Or again, maybe you just want to talk about like some specific additional feature of the property that's particularly attractive, whatever it may be, you can do that here. 2 ways to do that. So you can either record comments, And if you click on that, again, you can see, you know, call you or call in. Eve, by the way, it's the name of their virtual person here. So if you see Eve, that's her. So you can record the information there. So that is where it'll, you know, ring your phone and you just talk into it, say what you want to say. It'll append that to the end of it, or you can type it in. And because I get this question too, no, they don't have that same voice actress go and record whatever you put in here, okay? This part is like, you know, the robo text-to-speech thing, and it's pretty good, but just, you know, be aware of whatever you put in there. You might want to go click and listen to the presentation. You know, the example I always use is, you know, we are in the Southwest, right? So we've got saguaros and tortillas and things like that. You know, make sure things are pronounced properly if you type it in. And if you need to help her out phonetically, you can do that. It's pretty good, but, you know, a good example there too is that, you know, if you've got a property off Rodeo Drive, you don't want to be advertising that it's off Rodeo Drive, right? So pretty straightforward there. All right, and that is pretty much it. So again, once you're a little bit familiar with these things, you can either just trust it to pick things from the MLS, or again, start by just clicking the button, listening to the presentation, see if you want to tweak it, or just jump in and roll through these screens. Again, once you know what you're looking for, this takes no time at all to actually do that. So I'll cancel because I don't know if Danielle's doing anything more with this. So the other thing, available date, again, we don't use that too much out here, but, you know, let's say it's a military family relocating or something like that, and it's on the market particularly early, you know, that kind of thing. You might want to, you know, mention that it's going to be available as of this date to close, you know, that kind of thing. Open houses, that's kind of handy. So very straightforward, right? You pull this up and, hey, if you're scheduling an open house, you know, for Saturday, let's say, we just click on that, you select start time, select an end time, you know, that's all there is to it. And then if someone either calls in or looks at it on the mobile site or wherever, it's going to show them that that open house is coming up. And this will always do 6 days ahead. So there's no ambiguity there, right? So if, let's say they're listening to it on a Saturday and you have an open house scheduled for the next Saturday and it says there's an open house on Saturday, you know, like which day is that? So it's always going to do today and then plus 6 days ahead. So, you know, we'll say there's an open house tomorrow at 1 p.m., those kind of things. So just kind of handy to have that there. I'll pull these up. Like I said, I'm guessing this has just been here very briefly, so I don't know if there'll be any information, but I'll pull a seller report and see if we get lucky. All right, so I'm guessing this is brand new. So this report can be really useful when there actually is data in here, if it's on the market long enough to actually collect that. But pretty straightforward. It's going to say how many inquiries have come in, you know, by phone, text, or via the mobile site. Anyone that's touched on it or looked at it. It's going to obviously graph all that information out and whatnot, give you some additional info on times, that kind of thing. So, you know, this little format here can be used a couple of different ways, general information, but you can also set this up to be emailed out to your seller. I probably wouldn't do that right now, just again, because of how fast things are turning. You're probably not going to see a lot of activity in here. But if our market actually calms down a little bit and homes are actually out there long enough for, you know, people to see them for more than a day, this is kind of cool too. Or let's say you've got something that is in, you know, a much higher price point or something like that, that is going to be on the market for a little while. You can set that so that, you know, your listing clients actually get those updates regularly. Or, you know, heck, you can send it to yourself if you wanted to keep track of anything coming in or out. The other thing that can be a little more useful is the detail report. Again, I'm assuming there's not going to be anything right now. Yeah, so this is not a great example here. What's nice about this detail report, when it does have information in there, again, it's going to show all the calls, texts, website activity, that kind of thing. But this is where it gets a little bit of additional information that I mentioned, as far as, you know, the amount of time spent on a call, the different areas they've clicked through on, you know, the mobile for that property, that kind of thing. This is just another handy way to go back through and do follow-ups, right? Whether it's someone you ended up talking to or not, you know, just call them back. There's a lot of different scripts you can use if you're following up from this, right? You can do a quality control kind of script, right? Like, hey, yeah, I'm using the new system. We're able to get the information you wanted on the property from that. Okay, great. You know, it's a way to, you know, open the conversation if you're not really sure what else to say about this random phone number that called, right? So a lot of different things you can do there. Let me take you instead, though, to, yes, let's remove filters. There we go. This is kind of an example of what that would look like, but specific to the property. This is more just general. And Danielle has usually a fair bit of activity going on, which is why I like to use that. So what's great about this is, as you can see, this is, date and time of the call, type of call, where it came from, text, the mobile site, callers. Again, people still call, believe it or not, guys, they really do. If it's someone that you have registered, like it's your own client that you've claimed in there, it'll show that that way with a little R here showing that, Bill and Tracy is someone that she's working with, I guess. And then what they actually called on, so you can take a look at that. If you want to use this as a follow-up, like I said, when Nate's team is going in and doing the callbacks and whatnot from people for the marketing, the physical material he puts out, this is essentially where they'll go for that. I mean, hopefully they've grabbed any calls live if they could, but they'll always do follow-up if they just called for the price or whatever. Just basically go right down this list, right? You can add in notes if you'd like. I mean, you're probably gonna do that in whatever your primary CRM is, but it's good to have here. Likewise, if you need to follow up with them a little bit later, you can schedule that in the system, give you a reminder. Like I said, you probably already have your own systems for it, but if not, hey, this is a great little call list to work back through. The other thing I think is wonderful about this is, again, it's connected live to the MLS, and that's more than just property information, right? That's also agent information and other things as well. So if someone calls in, it's always going to try to, pull caller ID information on that as well. So you'll see, like, it just says wireless caller. Obviously, it wasn't able to pull that additional information, but where it can, it'll do that. So the other thing that's great, though, is you see this green A here. So that means it's been called by an agent, and it's green. It means it's someone in our brokerage. So let's hover over that and see. Okay, that was Danielle herself. On the mobile site. So she was probably just sharing or finding something. But let's say that there was someone else in our company that had touched on that for whatever reason. You can see that. Obviously, that's a different follow-up call when I'm saying, "Hey, Courtney, what did you think about?" But also, aha, here we go. So if we roll down here, you see the red A. That's an agent that's called with a different brokerage. So in this case, Judy Moore here was with HomeSmart. Again, different call. Now they could be looking for themselves, who knows, but still you're going to approach that differently than if it's a client, right? So, that's just a handy thing. The other thing you can see here is that this is someone that is unregistered, right? So this is not someone that Danielle claimed for herself, right? But obviously they're using the system. And if you look at the calls here, usually you'll find that somewhere in there, there is like a text property inquiry or a phone call. And then all of a sudden you'll see all the activity going to the mobile site, right? Because, they go to get the current price or whatever. It says, if you'd like photos or other property information texted to you, press 1 now. They do that. They click through and then boom, right there, then they're on the mobile site. As you can see, new mobile site user, their first use of the site. And then they go through. The hearts here mean that this person has actually dove in there and they're actually favoriting properties, that kind of thing. So you see something like this, clearly that's someone you should reach out to, right? Because they're actively doing it. They obviously, like the app, they're using it, they're selecting favorites, etc. Hey, what a great thing to follow up on, right? That's a good way to go there. The other thing is if you click through, you can see the basic information here. So let's say you did a quick follow-up call and you get a little information from me, you want to plug in the name, that sort of thing. You can click right here to register the buyer. And again, we would just change wireless caller, whatever the appropriate name is, plug in an email. And this is one thing I will say about this. If you're registering people in here, you do need to plug in an email to actually register them. What if you don't have one, right? What if it's just an initial contact, you don't have that much rapport yet, they're still not making eye contact, one of those kind of things. They don't want to get spammed by you, that kind of thing. Well, one of Nate's lines that he uses if he's got someone really cagey with him is to be like, come on, can I buy a vowel? Usually giggle a little bit, at least if they're of an age where they've watched Wheel of Fortune. But you can usually get something. So if you've got Bob and that's all you've got, cool, put Bob in there. If Bob won't give you his email address, here's the deal. Just put in yours or put in something like no email at MikeDeRosa.com or something like that. And then just set the email notifications to no. That way, this is not going to try to send them, but it's got something in there if you had to. And get them registered. Also, if you're looking at this, and again, you see hey, there's been a lot of activity, you can say view complete history. And it's going to show you everything that person did, right? And here it is. So you can read through that and get an idea of what kind of properties they're looking at, those kind of things. Now, one advantage, though, is if we jump over to the buyers, so my buyers, these are people that you've actually registered in the system. One advantage to actually having them this way is it kind of aggregates and collects more information. Like I said, you can view the complete history there and it'll basically just search and see what else they've touched. What's great is, and she's got some people that are, very deeply into using it, but here, I'll just click on this. So let's look at Michelle McGrath here. What's cool is they'll go in and it'll like map out everything they've been doing, right? So a couple of different ways that you can use this. One, I've seen our own agents as they go out and they're pulling up property information, they're actually doing it from their mobile site. So if they're just out and about with someone, again, we're doing less of that right now with someone, in the car with you. But they would drive around, take a look at different neighborhoods, those kind of things when they were doing that real, like, close one-on-one personal consulting kind of thing. And then they would actually review what they did by, coming and pulling this up, right? So rather than like, noting or favoriting or whatever, they can just take a look, because you can say like, okay, how about today, right? Or yesterday, and just see what you actually looked at right then, right? And it'll do the same kind of format. So that's kind of a handy thing to do there. The other thing that's nice is if you've got a client that's out there and using the mobile app or calling in or whatever they may be doing, you can kind of see also as you select those time periods, if they're an active person, where are they actually looking? Especially since it's coded, right? So this person doesn't have any phone inquiries, but if they did, it's not real likely that they would have called the phone number and put in the MLS or the property address for something they were looking at online, right? Like it doesn't make any sense. If they called in, it's probably because they were like outside the home, or looked at a sign or whatever. So that can kind of tell you where they physically are, but also, okay, it's pretty obvious where this person is looking for properties, right? What I think is really cool too, and I'm not sure if we'll have one that has, I'll pick someone that has a ridiculous number. Let's see what it does with the map here. All right, let's see if we can zoom in and get a little bit, wow. So again, people are really active with these apps, it's ridiculous. Okay, so this is actually a poor example because there's so much noise here. But usually like with a lot of usage, and like I said, if you kind of step through the time too, if you say like last week, this week, yesterday, you'll see where sometimes they're starting pretty broad, but then the properties they're looking at like yet increasingly more confined to a given area or neighborhood or something like that. So that can be kind of a cool way to visually see how their search is being narrowed, and that kind of gives you that information as well to work with, right, as you're consulting with them. Another thing that's nice about this, and again, I couldn't find any examples of it right now with how quickly stuff is turning, but it'll actually, like I said, it's very context aware. So it'll actually make note of the information they saw when they inquired on that property, whether it's on web or phone or text or whatever. And so if you glance through here, it'll show you things like, for instance, it'll say the current price is 165, but it was 185 when they viewed it. Right, so that can be interesting. They say, hey, there have been price drops on a couple properties out in this neighborhood, ones that you looked at before if you're interested. Again, just a lot of different ways to inform you about what's happening with the market segment they're looking at, and also to give you other reasons to potentially follow up with them if you needed to. So kind of some cool features in there. So I've been talking nonstop here. Questions about those couple pieces with like the leads or anything like that?
Mike?
Yeah.
Do you know if you put an open house in the MLS, will it sync to your VoicePad?
It should, yes. It should come through with a date and time and plug that in there. So yeah, that is one of the things that is enabled for syncing with Armless. We actually did have some problems with that. I don't know, 9 months ago or so when they actually added some of those new additional fields and whatnot. But again, they were on that pretty quick. So if there's a challenge with that, let me know. But yeah, it should come right through. Yeah, the thing that this does not pull, by the way, guys, is rentals. So by default, it's not doing that. So like I said, you could go in and actually click the presentation thing and add one in there. And again, use that available date, for instance, right, for when the lease could be started, that kind of thing. So you can add them, but by default, it's not going to pull rentals in. But your other stuff should be in here, and pretty much everything should sync. So let's head back to the dashboard. So the other piece that I want to show you for sure is that mobile site, like I mentioned. Let me grab, this is a good one. So I'm not quite sure how this will display on your side because I'm pulling up the mobile site in a desktop browser that I'm sharing via Zoom. This isn't exactly the normal use case. Okay, so here's Rick's site. And if this window, is that window resizing for you dynamically?
Mhm.
Okay, cool. So like, if you're on a phone, you might see something a little bit more like this, right? If, obviously it's on an iPad or whatever, it does, adapt the site as it goes. And he must be out of listings at the moment because normally it's immediately showing property info. Interesting. So one thing that is an additional interesting use for the site. Let me see if Danielle's might be a better example for this one part here. There we go. All right. So she's got that current listing. So let's say you're looking at it, on your phone, right, like this. So one thing that's kind of cool about this is you can use this as a digital business card, right? So this is another thing that you can do. You can just kind of keep a contact card or in your clipboard or wherever your link, or what you can do, visit your mobile site on your device, add the icon to your home screen, right? So it's always right there that you can tap on. And at the bottom here, if you go to search tools, you can send it directly to someone from here. So you can just pull this up, plug in their name, mobile number, that sort of stuff, hit submit, and it'll send it directly over to them as well. So that's kind of a handy thing to have there, though. Why would you do that? Obviously, you can send a regular, VCF contact card that's got your information, that kind of thing. Well, there's lots of cool stuff you can do here. If you send this over, obviously, it's got your smiling face, but it's also got, the direct information. I'm not connected to my phone on here, but you can display all that information. They can tap through just like anything they're used to contact you, and they're also right on your site already, right? So they can click through on your featured listings. They can do searches, as you can see. Can't swipe because I'm not on a touch device, but you know how these things work, right? So it's a pretty good mobile site. It's got obviously all that kind of stuff. If you click play on either of these, it'll actually do kind of a virtual showing sort of thing with additional information that Eve is actually talking about as it narrates and goes through them, right? So that's kind of cool. And then it has all the sorts of data that you might be interested in, right? It's got the walk score, the drive score, educational information, all those kind of things, right? So there's the basic information, but you can get into schools. You can actually see what's around this particular one. You can fire up a map around the property to see, okay, how far is the elementary school? And it shows that here as well. All right, and GPS is not happy through Chrome on here, but you know how that works, right? That's kind of cool. So like if you're thinking, oh, can my kid walk to school, right? And it's like, 0.5 miles to the middle school or something. Great, that's great information to have, right? If you click through on these, it's actually going to pull up information from a couple of national sources, and it's going to give you, total number of students, the amount per teacher. Again, GPS is not going to pull up on here, but it'll also give you the additional school demographics, things like that, if you want it. You can see other market activity in the area, of course. And this is stuff where, again, like I said, it's just going to kind of be a list view from things you plugged in there. Lots of good information here as well. It'll also do other things if we click in here, like let's say we want to see what dining is like, desktop browser. But it'll show you again, like, all of the, dining and shopping and things like that that are around there as well in relation to like the walk score. Again, on any of those things, you can click through, see additional information about those, like Yelp kind of stuff, that kind of thing. So it's a pretty decent site overall for all that kind of stuff. And what I like too is it's very snappy. It's very easy to use. And if you're on, like the homepage here, they can just click find nearby properties. Obviously, it's going to do that with GPS and just pull up what's there. But they can also do a map search. So they can, draw the area they're looking for. Pretty typical feature these days. Same deal. If they go into the advanced search, they can just look at what's near them, things they've recently viewed, anything they've saved, or again, they can specify, all of the general information they'd like to, and they can just continue drilling down deeper and deeper if they'd like here. Not really spending time on that. You guys know what searching is like. This can do most of the things that, any of their big sites can do, but it's really built to be as streamlined and fast as possible. But that's one advantage of doing this. The other thing, though, is you can give people a real value add as to why they actually should be looking at your site. So that's one reason I pulled up Rick's initially, because I love this. Okay, so Rick uses this and he sends it out to pretty much everyone. And there's a couple times he does it. One, just for general contact, right? Like, hey, I'll shoot you over my digital business card. It's got all my information there and some additional things you might find helpful. So like I said, he would just click on through here, he'd plug in information, say submit, and it will send them that directly with the link they can click on. But the other thing that's huge is, how often are we asked for a recommendation, right? Heck, we ask each other all the time. Do you have a plumber? Do you have a good roofer? Who's a landscaper? Do you have a pool guy? Those kind of things, right? So one other thing that's great is the preferred contacts here. Rick basically puts all those in there. He maintains a great list of solid people, and he adds them all into this. So he says, well, tell you what, I'll send you my digital business card. And if you click on the contacts on there, it's got my entire directory of awesome service providers. So anyone you might need, you can find them there, right? That's definitely a value add, right? That's a reason for someone to actually look at this. And again, if they're looking at it, then they're that much closer to touching on anything else that then you get to harvest all the data from. But check this out. If I go into preferred contacts, so here's all the categories that he's plugged in, right? So he's got all this kind of stuff. So hey, I said, hey, do you have a good carpet guy? Well, he's got 3 of them for you, right? How about window repair? Sure, there you go. Roofing. And again, all these, you can tap on it to call directly. He's plugging in additional information on these people where he's got it. So, I'm not gonna go through all these, but as you can see, he's got people for everything. So what a great resource, right? So really cool there. And again, this gives them a reason to actually tap at this, look at this. It's really easy for them to find what they want, right? Which is the key. You're actually providing real value there. But then again, they're right here. They're connected to this. This is a good reason for them to keep coming back for those recommendations, that kind of thing. Again, they're just like tied directly to you. So I think that's pretty cool, right? So let me go back and show you where you actually do that stuff. All right, so again, just so you know where we're at, from account dashboard, go into my profile, go into mobile site options, and then here's the stuff. And if you just scroll down a little bit, you'll see, here you go, the preferred contacts, click here, and then there you are. So Daniel's not really using this, but here's a bunch of those default categories. If you wanna throw someone in, like you've got a great landscaping guy, you just say add or manage contacts, new contact, plug in the information, save. Pretty straightforward there. Definitely worth your time to plug that in so you can use it in that kind of way. And what's nice is, again, there's not going to be any stats to you on hers, obviously, but you can click through there and actually see kind of like on the property stuff, right? Like how many people have looked at each one of them, how many have actually tapped through on their phone number or email address, things like that. So that's kind of cool as well. So if you're trying to maintain a good relationship with some of those folks, it's a way for you to, for instance, go and take a look, call your plumber and say, hey, I've, referred to, 3 or 4 different people to you recently. How's that going? Oh, did you work with Susie? Whatever. And be able to do some additional follow-up from that side of your business. So again, just another great little piece of that there. So I'm not going to go a whole lot deeper on these. Again, I feel like I've just been talking nonstop, trying to hit the bullet points and whatnot. Again, we can go way deeper on any of these, but hopefully it gives you some ideas about different ways you can leverage things. But let me throw it back to you guys. You have questions, thoughts, any creative ways that you think you might be able to use some of this? What do you think? No creative ways you might be able to use it. Man, that's too bad.
It's a great program. I just keep forgetting about it, which is why I keep taking these classes, because I haven't made it a priority, but it works.
Right, right. Well, and thanks for that, right? Like I said, we always, again, I'm always going to be honest and transparent with you guys, right? So this is one of those deals where, we keep looking at it. It's not an inexpensive thing to provide. And we're like, well, how much is that getting used these days, right? Sign calls, et cetera. And especially pandemic, we're like, oh, okay, how many people are actually out, right? But like, there's so many other pieces of it, and there's so many different ways you can actually leverage it. Like I said, even with the print ad stuff. It seems weird to some people, like, oh, you're doing a print ad and then you're putting a phone number on it to call. What? It still works. I mean, again, like, look at all the usage that Danielle was getting there. Again, a lot of them started from a sign call and then went into it. As I mentioned, Rick, like, he doesn't use the system nearly as much on the actual property side, its main intended purpose, as he does with that directory and the virtual business card kind of thing, right? And that's a huge thing for him. So it's just really interesting to see all the different little pieces that go into it. And again, you can use all of them or one of them, but I think there's still some good stuff in there.
Mike,
Yeah.
could you go over how do you add contacts or the preferred providers?
Yep, absolutely. So again, when you're logged into the dashboard here, it's where it's going to take you when you first log in. You go to My Profile, and then the mobile site options, because that's where that's located, is on the mobile app. And then scroll down and you'll see preferred contacts right here. It's not super obvious, but basically on the mobile site options, look for preferred contacts, and there's a link that says click here to set up contacts. And that's where it'll give you this right here. It has all the categories, and then you can just go into the contacts and either edit stuff that you had in there or add new ones.
Nice.
And again, by default, the system is smart enough, right? So if you only have contacts in a couple of these, it's not going to show all these categories with no one in them, right? It's only going to show ones where you actually have someone. Obviously, Rick has multiple people in every single one, but if you've got 5 that you just want to have on there to begin with or whatever, cool. But truly, right there, if you didn't use anything else, I think that's an awesome thing, And again, look at how many times we all recommend people to each other, whether it's through, the messages that come out on the distribution list or on Facebook or whatever. Well, as people are recommending those, maybe just plug them in here, right? Because again, this is not an endorsement by you, right? It's just like, hey, here's some people we worked with in the past. Other people in my company also recommend. Like we always talk about, never point them to one person, never schedule it for them, give them some options, but you're a resource at least, right? Again, this is just an awesome way to do that.
Thanks.
Yeah, my pleasure. Let's see. One other thing I guess I'll mention too, go back to the mobile site here. So actually, this is the faster way. So, okay, if we're looking at the mobile site, like I mentioned, you can go to your site, keep it as a shortcut on your phone. And if you want to share, just like the link, you can say this, share to mobile phone, share to email. Again, really straightforward. You plug in who it's going to, who it's from, and then do a message. Essentially, it'll just send them a text that has your link. So that's the super quick and easy way. Thing I was showing you before, go all the way down to the bottom and say search tools. What's cool about this is I showed you where you would register someone, right? You'd go into my buyers or click through from someone that had called in and then basically just plug in the rest of their information and then it's attached to you, right? So you can see all the additional information. Also then if someone else is using VoicePad and they're looking at, for instance, properties that are none of our agents, that agent, kind of like on the lead street side of things with Remax, right? They'll see that someone inquired about the property, but they'll see that it's someone else's registered buyer, right? So it's not going to give them their information. So again, kind of protects them to you as well, but really it's about tracking their additional stuff. If you use that search tools thing here and plug this in, this basically directly registers them, right? So it puts it right in as a buyer because you can see this is that same info it was asking for, right? First name, last name, and email address, and at least one number. So all those same rules apply. If you don't have the email, whatever, just plug in something bogus for the time being. But that'll register them directly as a buyer. So what could you use this for? Well, I mean, how about using this as a sign-in page at an open house or something, right? Like you could leave this up on an iPad, let's say, that kind of thing, and they could be putting their information in here and, there they go. You can look at everyone that, you registered that day from an open house, that kind of thing. The other thing too, and again, less of this these days because we're not, we're physically distancing that. But one thing I've heard from agents too is, when they are at an open house or something like that, and they just don't quite have that relationship yet, and you're trying to get them information, but they're not feeling super good, disclosing a lot, you can say, well, tell you what, why don't I activate my search service for you? And again, here's a little tip, guys. You never want to say I'm registering you for something, because that immediately invokes spam and everything else out there. Like, I'm going to get a million things from you. I don't want to be registered for anything. But if I activate a tool for you, hey, that's cool, right? So you can do something like that, but you can, hand them a device, pull this up, say, well, tell you what, here, don't give it to me. I'll just do this. That way you have access to it, let them put the information in themselves. Of course, you still have it, right? But that's a great thing. Like, hey, well, can I share with you my list of vendors then? Usually they're going to give you your phone number because, let me text it to you. Here you go, right? And again, just do that from that share thing. But, if you do have that additional information, go ahead and, plug them in directly there so they're instantly registered as a buyer for you as well.
Mike?
Yeah.
Confirming you're sending a cheat sheet out via email to all of us?
Correct. I am indeed. So when we wrap up here, I'm going to get that on out to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
My pleasure. All right. So again, that's a very wordy, and believe it or not, as brief as I could reasonably make it overview, because it has so many pieces. And again, we could spend an hour on some of the additional stuff in the mobile site. We could spend an hour on how do you do media tracking campaigns, all those kind of things. There's a lot more that we could get into there. But if any of you want to go deeper on any of those pieces, let me know. I'm always happy to do that with you. Again, I think a lot of it will get you probably to 90% of what you need, just kind of the cheat sheets. Because once you're in the right spot, most of the features and whatnot are really pretty self-explanatory. So I'll send that out to everyone as well. Again, if anyone needs their login information, just do a quick reply back. I'll go look it up. We'll reply right back with it. But anything else while we're chatting here at the moment? All right. Well, again, like I said, there's a lot to it. I'm happy to go into any detail about those other pieces, or if you're trying to set something up or into a roadblock, just have questions, please feel free. I'm always happy to help. I am pretty well versed in this whole thing. If you're running into anything weird, or again, if you just want to brainstorm about a use case, like, hey, I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z, how can we do that? I'll throw one last idea at you, just again to keep the juices flowing. When Frank was actually repping a new home development, one thing they did with VoicePad is I showed you where you could add a presentation, right? If it wasn't synced from the MLS, you could create one. Well, he went in there and he picked one of the most bare bones one, right? I think it was one of the land templates or whatever, because obviously that isn't going to prompt you for bedrooms, baths, things like that, because it's a piece of land. He basically didn't put in anything as far as features and whatnot, and he just used that additional info thing. And he actually recorded some general property information about the development itself, right? He did a couple of those for the luxury section of it, the lower end section, that kind of thing. And they put that out there on the marketing material. For automated information about availability, spec homes, blah, blah, blah. So he set up a bunch of those. They're basically just recordings, with general information they wanted to put out there. And then they put those out, and again, he assigned a code to it, right? Because it's not an MLS listing. So they put those things out there on all their print marketing that they did. Again, they saw a lot more call through because it, said it was automated information, right? But then also they got the advantages of all those tracking pieces. So again, they were able to then every day go through and call everyone that had inquired about whatever different segments of the new development, right? So again, totally not what it was originally designed for, but a super easy way to leverage, the back end tracking and all that kind of stuff and do follow up. So again, there's a lot of those kind of things that, are possible with it. So if there's anything like that you're noodling on and you want to talk about that a little bit more, again, you know where to find me. All right, awesome. My pleasure. So great seeing you all. Thanks for joining me here. Thanks for listening to me.
Michael, thank you so much for clearing the air on a few things. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll send out that cheat sheet momentarily, and then again, just let me know if I can help, okay?
Awesome.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, take care, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Mike. Bye, everybody.